Good morning, I'm the Reverend Steve Page from St. Patrick's Anglican Church, and you're listening to the Daily Devotional Moment on CFMQ, sponsored by the Hudson Bay Ministerial Association. Now this month I'm drawing our images of Christian faith and spirituality from the wonderful, sometimes weird, world of sports. Now tonight is the championship game for American college football, so let's talk football today. And as usual, to set the mood, let me just pull on a football jersey. Yeah, it always helps me think more football-y that way. There we go. So tonight, the number 1 ranked Louisiana State Tigers will do battle against the 2nd ranked University of Alabama Crimson Tide, with the winner claiming this year's title of national champion. The way U.S. college football works, if you're not familiar with it, number 1 and number 2 always meet in the final. But every once in a while, number 1 and number 2 meet in the regular season as well. It happened this year, back in November, when these same 2 teams, with the same 2 positions in the rankings, they met and they played a defensive battle that LSU won 9-6 in overtime. Now, regular season meetings between number 1 and number 2 ranked teams, they only happen every few years. Now, one such game that happened back in 1991 involved the number 1 ranked Florida State Seminoles, and they were the home team, they hosted the number 2 ranked University of Miami Hurricanes. Now Miami, they struck first. They scored a touchdown on the game's opening possession, and with running back Stephen McGuire crossing the goal line to put the points on the board with the touchdown. But then, Florida State scored the next 16 points, led by a fine game by their quarterback, Casey Weldon, a young man who had never to that point lost a game as a starter. Now, despite Miami's strong and aggressive defense, Florida State, they dominated the 2nd and 3rd quarters statistically, but they often had to settle for field goals. And, with the game still fairly close, Miami fought back in the 4th quarter. A field goal narrowed the lead to 16-10, and then they got the ball back with about 7 minutes to play. And yard by yard, play by play, they moved closer to scoring. But the Seminoles' defense dug in and forced a 4th down. Miami, they needed a touchdown. They're still down by 6. A field goal would not help them. So on 4th and 6, quarterback Gino Torretta found receiver Horace Copeland, a skillful receiver who would one day go on to play in the NFL. But on this day, he made only this one very crucial catch for the 1st down. And Miami would score 3 plays later, a touchdown, taking a 17-16 lead with 3 minutes and 1 second to play. So Florida still had a little bit of time, and back came Florida State. They worked their way downfield, and they got to the 18-yard line. Running back Amp Lee, he would also one day make the NFL. He took the handoff from Casey Weldon, and he picked up a yard. And with no timeouts left, quarterback Casey Weldon, he took the ball and he spiked it to stop the clock. Now they were at the 17-yard line, down by a point, 29 seconds to play. But in the scramble of getting the plays off quickly, Weldon had lost his shoe. Now facing a delay and looking at a potential game-winning 34-yard field goal attempt, the Florida State coach, he decided to send in the kicking team 1 play early. It was only 3rd down instead of waiting till 4th down. So they lined up, and the snap came back to the holder, and he placed the ball down for the kicker, who booted it up and wide to the right. No good. By inches. Number 2 ranked Miami, they got the ball back. They ran out the final few seconds and celebrated this huge victory, a key step on their way to winning a share of the national championship that year. It was a team that refused to get discouraged. Sure, they had to play the number 1 ranked team on their home field, no less. They could have become discouraged by that. They could have become even more discouraged when they fell behind 16-7 in the 3rd quarter. But they dug down, and they kept doing what they could. Now, discouragement is natural, especially when life circumstances gang up on us, and we feel we can't cope, or we've blown it, or we failed. In those times, turn to the Bible and remind yourself that God is with us, and God is in control. Read stories like Judges 7, when Gideon tackles the vast army of Midian with just 300 men. Or turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 20 and verse 15, when God reassures a fearful and discouraged King Jehoshaphat that the coming battle is in God's hands. He says, "Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's." Or when your discouragement turns to weariness and depression, hear Jesus say, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." May you know the peace and rest and power and encouragement of God today. For St. Patrick's Church, I'm Steve Page.